Today we have Coleen Greco on the podcast. She's a mindset coach, nutrition coach, and personal trainer. She likes to say wellness coach or joyologist because she does so many things for her clients. And she's the founder of the SNAP method, which we'll get more into here as we get going. So Coleen herself overcame some struggles and has lost over 50 pounds over and sustained it over the last 4 years, which is obviously something that is not easy to do. And now she's taken what she's learned and applied it to coaching her clients. She's compassionate, empathetic, and violently authentic. But she wasn't always this way. She's been plagued by her own self-defeating thoughts, and some of them that she carried for over 4 decades. Through her own journey of self-discovery, spiritual exploration, and personal crisis, she managed to transform her life into an incredible story. Today, as we said, she's a joyologist and she provides coaching to people who feel stuck. She's also a motivational speaker. She works with individuals and corporations around the globe, teaching folks how to reclaim their joy through the SNAP method. So we're very excited to have her on today. Coleen, welcome to the show.
This sounds like somebody I want to meet.
Exactly. Well, it's all true. So, we look at you right now, you're like, obviously motivational speaker, coach to, hundreds, as we were talking about before we even started recording. But, if we had looked at you just maybe a few years ago, probably wouldn't be in this same space. So obviously there's been a big transformation that's happened. So let's start back from the beginning. Like, what were things like for you growing up and how did you get into fitness?
That's a great question. So I would say, first of all, growing up, I was the youngest of 7. So there was a lot of competing for airspace, let's say, right? So sitting around the dinner table, nobody wanted to hear from the person in kindergarten. They wanted to hear from, my sister, who was at that point on her way into college, right? There was a whole gamut of issues, and me coloring inside or outside of the lines wasn't one of them. So I was always a deep listener, I think, because of that. And I've always been in this air of being in service to others. My father used to say that he named me right. So Coleen means girl in Gaelic, and my middle name, Joyce, means happy. And so I've just always been that really happy, lighthearted, silly person. And I think that's always served me well. I've always been in these, customer service type roles, and always had the relationships that I've put effort into have always been really great relationships. And that's always been really important to me. In college and beyond, I was, I got my MBA in marketing. I was in IT marketing. So I was not in the fitness industry, but always an athlete growing up, and, a runner. And so about 6 years ago, there was a trauma here at the house that one of our kids had a suicide attempt. And that was a really, it just rocked us to our core. Literally could not get off the ground, as you can imagine. And so first I want to say he's okay. He's doing really, really well. But you have to understand that at that point he was 10, and we could not get him services, if you can believe it. So there wasn't a single therapist that would return our phone call. And I think because of the nature of the case, and he was 10, I don't think anybody, wants to add that to their resume. That's risky. And so we were left to figure this out for ourselves. And so as we were trying to figure this out, there was certainly some excessive eating and drinking, just trying to cope with making sure he was okay. I didn't really care if I was okay. And that was evident because I went way, way up. 52 pounds, pregnancy weights, right? Or maybe your weight, right? Like that's a number that looks good for you. That's not a number I should be at. And once things were settled and he seemed like he was in a good place and I could start to focus on myself, I thought, I've really got to, like kids do a lot of modeling, and they are always watching, they're always listening. And what kind of example am I setting for him and my other son if this is the way I'm treating my body when tough times arise? So
If I can pause you here 1 second,
sure.
I mean, oh my goodness, obviously a very traumatic experience, and I would say happy to hear that everything is going well now or better now. So then you mentioned that you had started kind of using food to cope. So previously, I'm assuming you weren't kind of in this overweight state. And then about over how long of period of time did it take you to gain the 52 pounds?
I mean, if I mean, in my mind, 5 minutes, but not long. 3 or 4 months.
Okay.
I mean, it was fast. I also like craft beer, so those are high in calories, as you know, in Wisconsin. So yeah, I had never really had a weight problem. I would say growing up, I probably had, maybe an extra 5 or 10 pounds, things that are to me an annoyance, you know, and other people wouldn't even notice that I had weight to lose. But this was noticeable. And if I show you, I can send you my before and after picture. It's like, oh, is that what I looked like? I had no idea until I saw that picture that I was in such rough shape.
Wow. So you saw this picture. I mean, like, obviously this is a big identity shift as well, because you're used to being an athlete, you're used to being, fit in pretty good shape. So how was your mental state when you had gained 52 pounds? Like, what was going through your mind?
I think I was just frozen. I actually like to refer to it as like there was a defrosting period where I sort of came to. I think I was just so numb by the fact that, I mean, when this happened, we were home. He was literally a floor above us. So, I mean, imagine the shame that you have as a parent thinking, how could this happen under my own roof while I'm here and then not know it? So I think there was a lot of, you know, like I said, shame associated with that. And there was just a lot of panic around making sure that he was safe, my other son was safe, and that we were all making whatever modest steps forward we could. And my health could just wait, which in retrospect now was probably not the best choice I could have made, because again, my health is number one. If I am not in my best self, what kind of product am I giving off to them? And I know that now, and that's what I try to teach my clients now is like, do not wait. Number one, you definitely don't know that you have beyond today. But number two, you think you're giving your best, but you're actually giving, in my case, my worst away.
Can you give a couple of examples? Like, how are things different from you mentally, or even just in your behaviors, or just how you carried yourself, like when you like for the first time were 50 pounds overweight?
How did I carry myself? Oh, I think I tried to just, I made my circle really small for one. I didn't trust anybody. I didn't want anybody around me. I didn't want anybody over the house. I didn't care if they called. I didn't call them back. I made my circle really, really small. The group of friends that we have, we refer to each other as the tribe. If they weren't in the tribe, they didn't get my attention. Again, probably not the best coping mechanism, but it's what I had at the time, because the person that had caused the bullying was actually friends of ours, their son. And so that was like, I don't understand how that's even possible, how that could happen. And so I found myself kind of like caving within, if you could like visually picture it, like rounded shoulders and just sort of like trying to just, I don't know, kind of being a turtle, right? You just kind of like retreat into your own shell. I think that's how I behaved for a number of months. I would just drive around aimlessly. I would have these dreams that I would drive to the family's house and just verbally assault them with everything I had. Also not my personality, but again, you're just kind of going through the motions. You don't even know. You're kind of not in your right mind when you're going through something like that. And then fast forward to today. I mean, I'm so thankful for that situation. It's almost unfathomable that you could be thankful for such a horrendous situation. But he is so strong. He is so confident. He's emerged into himself, and we are so strong as a family. We're all so much healthier that, I can't imagine what our lives would be like had that not happened.
Can you expand on that, about why you're thankful for that situation?
It's a little it's a little I think hard to wrap your head around how you could be thankful for such a traumatic experience. But what it causes you to do is you focus on only the things that are truly important to you right now. I'm not worried about what's going to happen a year from now. I'm worried about an hour from now. Are we all going to be okay an hour from now? And so we got really, really close knit as a family. And my husband and my two kids know I have their back every step of the way, any day of the week, and vice versa. I know that I can lean on them with anything I have, and they have my back. There's a quote that is by Joel Osteen, and it said, "Trouble is your transportation," meaning, as you're going through this difficult time, don't worry about it. Just hang on tight, ride the wave. It's eventually going to deliver you to a much better situation, one far better than anything you could have imagined. Now, as I'm reading this, I'm going like, I don't believe this, right? I feel like I have a long way to go to be like really happy about this situation, but it happened. And our lives are so much better, so much more fulfilled, so much more enriched. I left my corporate IT marketing leadership job that I was in corporate IT for 25 years, left that to do this because I have what this whole trauma has delivered me is my calling. And I know that this is what I'm meant to do. It comes naturally to me. I have seen how I can change other people's lives. And that's far more fulfilling than an IT marketing gig where I can, deliver ROI and make some other company some money.
Yeah, let's definitely dive into that then. So obviously, like you were kind of at a low point at that point. You'd gained, kind of flashing back here a second, you had gained 52 pounds in about 3 or 4 months. Like you said, it felt like 5 minutes. You noticed your personality changing. I mean, I think you said you saw a picture of yourself. Like what triggered you to change, and like how did you even go about like making the change?
So that was on a trip to Montana, and I was going on a run and just felt like these 2 miles are killing me. Now I had run a marathon. I've done a million half marathons. I don't know how many other types of runs. So running is a passion of mine. Those 2 miles felt like death. Like I used to actually refer to myself as the walking dead. So that was definitely one. That picture that I'm referring to came from that trip where I, was kind of posing in front of our the shuttle that came and took us all to the airport. And I was like, how did I even fit in that picture? Like I was massive compared to what I thought I looked like. And then when I, had gotten back home, I was at a CrossFit gym that I had been a member of for a few years. And this woman walked in and she was, I don't know, 60-ish or something, definitely postmenopausal, which is how I judge people, premenopausal and postmenopausal. And I was like, wow, I think you lost weight. And she said, yeah, I've lost 25 pounds. And I thought, if this postmenopausal, like 60-something-year-old woman lost 25 pounds, I can definitely lose 25 pounds because I'm not menopausal yet. So this gives me hope. This is not my life. And so she gave me the name of her nutrition coach. He and I started working together. I lost, a bunch of weight, probably about 35 pounds. And I started to have deeper conversations with him because I saw that the end was coming. And I said, we need to be able to develop some strategies so that I don't get back to this weight again. So don't you want to know what happened? Even this level of the story that I'm telling you, don't you want to know like what caused this weight gain so you can help me develop strategies to never get back there again? And he said, I'm not your therapist. And I was like, that's not the right answer. So,
Yeah.
but I also said, that's an opportunity. To me, if you don't change the mindset, if you don't change the mental and emotional pieces, the weight is going to come back and then some, because you've done nothing to change the way that you respond to tough times, to triggers, to limiting beliefs. You've got to get a handle on those things and understand that 99.9% of them are lies you're telling yourself. Once you do that, like the weight doesn't stand a chance. So does my weight fluctuate 2-3 pounds? Of course it does, because I just don't care as much, right? Like I'll let myself, that's letting myself go is 2 to 3 pounds. But it's because I've put all of those stories and the trauma and the limiting beliefs and my trigger responses to bed. So I don't have those trigger responses anymore. I don't run to the pantry and, you know, clear it out of all the chips and the candy and whatever. You know, that just doesn't happen anymore. I just deal with it.
Okay. So you obviously lost the weight. You know, like you said, you saw the woman who you said was a post-menopausal. You're like, if she can lose 25 pounds, you know, I can lose weight as well. So you know, hired her nutrition coach she was working with, lost about 35 pounds. And then, like you said, you felt like you wanted more as far as like understanding why you're doing the things that you were doing and how you could actually sustain those. So what was the work that you did to get from there where you had lost the weight, but obviously still had some of those limiting beliefs or some of those mindsets? How did you get from there to where you are right now?
I think I've demonstrated 1,000 times over my lifetime when I'm told no, it's like, you know, thanks for the match. I'll light the fire and I just go and I will figure it out. Like, good luck if you've told me no. Like, it's time to step aside. And so I started, you know, kind of thinking through the things that kept happening. So those, like, the triggers were at that point still coming. The stresses were still coming. And so I started to journal them and just keep track of them, just like I did when I figured out my own food allergies, right? I just started keeping track of them, looking for trends, looking for, you know, commonalities. And over time, it was like the course of like 2 to 3 weeks, I started to realize that same story was coming up. So now I need to deal with the story because there's obviously a pattern here. And so I had developed the SNAP method. And the SNAP method is the thing that if you master it, you can redirect your response to triggers and set them free. You get to sort of like look them in the face and decide what you want to do about them. You can keep them if you want to, but I don't think that's my idea of a good time. So I'm in favor of letting them go. Um, and so, uh, you know, SNAP is an acronym, obviously. S stands for stop. So when the trigger comes, you just stop. You don't have to talk, text. Sometimes that one still catches me where I'm like, oh, Luke, and I just like I go for it. Um, you don't talk, you don't text, you don't type, right? You just kind of like welcome it in and just kind of watch it almost as if you're kind of on the outside. Which gets into N, which is notice. So notice has a bunch of different meanings. So physically notice, like, do you break out into a sweat? Does your voice start to shake? Sometimes I'll get like a lump, like right at the base of my throat. So there's always a physical reaction, but also environmentally, what's going on, right? Because the weather, believe it or not, has a lot to do with your emotions. And even the kind of day you had, right? So you notice everything about the situation and you document it. What did the person say? What is the way that they said it? All of the different things that pop up. And as you journal that, you don't judge it. So kind of gets me to A, which is accept. What's important about these steps is that you just allow the pen to flow. There's an actual like neurological connection between the brain and the pen and the paper. It actually doesn't work as well if you type it. You've really got to have like a physical pen, go old school. And you start to, you know, almost talk yourself into the truth. It can't be avoided. The pen, for some reason, just can't lie. And so as you're writing everything down, you're realizing like, wow, that thing about not being good enough, look at it. I have it right here in black and white. It's not true. I made it, like I made that phrase, I applied meaning to it. One of my famous examples is that when I was 10, my cousin called me fat. I wasn't fat, like for the record, but I believed that story for 34 years. So I had never worn a bikini until I was 44 years old. All because of that one off the cuff remark that they made. I'm sure if I actually had a conversation about this with them, they would be mortified that that affected me for 34 years. But to them, it was probably an innocent comment. To me, I made it like define me. So in letting that go, I used the SNAP method. I started to like look at the facts. I'm a size 2. Like those, like a size 2 is not fat in anybody. I don't care how tall or how short you are. Like not possible, right? Like you look at the facts, it's not true. And so then it gets to, once you've gone through the accept period, you get to P, which is practice gratitude. So just like the Joel Osteen quote, you thank the trigger for coming, because that tells your body that there's still more work to be done. I love that stage because it keeps me humble. It keeps me grounded and reminds me that, you know, life is really delicate and it's up to me where my energy goes and where my emotions go. And so I'm really careful about where I want to, you know, like what story I want to believe and where I want to apply my emotions to, because there's only so much time in the day. So P is probably my favorite. A and P are probably my 2 favorite stages, because, you know, you have the ability to accept the trigger that's coming in and accept all of the things that you wrote about it, but then you're also really grateful that it came, and it allows you to kind of reflect on where you're spending your time.
Mm-hmm. Wow. I mean, there's definitely obviously something that has been well thought out over a number of years and refined. So obviously a very, you know, kind of simplified process for dealing with traumas or dealing with challenges and redirecting that to be able to, you know, work on improving them or overcoming them. So did you see a therapist during this time? Did you read books? Like what did you watch YouTube videos? Like what did you kind of do to, was it kind of a collection of things? Like what did you do to kind of work on this?
I just journaled it. No, I wish I had access to a therapist that would talk to me about this. When this first happened, we did call, my other son was having like social anxiety issues and stuff. And so we did call on his therapist, who had already retired, and said, we're pulling you out of retirement. I don't care if it's for just a couple of days. Like you have got to tell us what to do today. Like today is the day that we need to get through. And so he talked to us twice, which was super gracious of him. But then everything else we did by ourselves. And the shocking thing is I live in Boston. Like I have the world's best hospitals at my fingertips and we still couldn't get the help. Um, but, but I'm grateful, because I think, you know, when you have to do all the work yourself, you value it a lot more. And you start to see, like any time last summer, the son that had the trauma seemed to just get like a little sad, and I was on it in 2 seconds, and we worked through it and we pulled him out of it, and he was great. But I'm not sure I would have been so alert and aware had I not had to do all of this work with him myself. So again, there's gratitude in the fact that we didn't have the support.
How do you practice gratitude? I mean, obviously that's the P, right? Practice gratitude. Like, how do you practice gratitude when it feels like things aren't going your way and it feels like nothing, you don't have as much to be grateful for? Like, how do you find those things that you are grateful for in the moment?
That's a tough question, because I truly don't believe in comparative suffering. So, example, same kid, actually. This is funny. When he was first born, he was in the hospital, like at Mass General, an hour away from here. And we brought the priest in, like they gave him all the prayers and everything. Like we thought we were going to lose him. And I remember my brother-in-law calling and being like, I'm such a jerk. You know, my daughter had conjunctivitis and I was so annoyed that I couldn't go to work today because she had conjunctivitis, and look at what you're dealing with. And I remember saying to him, listen, that's your biggest thing. Like you can't compare your biggest thing to my biggest thing. You're not going through my biggest thing, and I'm not going through yours. So you're allowed to have yours. Sure, you can't put potentially losing your baby and your daughter having conjunctivitis like on the same scale, but it is, because it's the most he's going through at the time. So the way I practice gratitude, it's going to sound a little like contrary to what I was just saying, but I do look around and say, but I do have so much. I am alive. I do have, you know, for the most part, really healthy family and, great friendships, and it could be a lot worse. And I would say through this whole experience too, I don't want to forget to mention, I discovered my faith. So my parents had passed away, 12 years ago now. And I never really felt like I had anybody watching over me. And I thought I could get away with anything. Luckily for my personality, I don't let that happen. I always tell my husband, you are so lucky that I'm so self-aware. Like I could take total advantage of you guys, right? Like they would let me get away with anything. But I'm not that type of person. But I did feel like I needed something. And so as this whole thing was unfolding, I went to church and just started listening. And the sermon that they were delivering that week was on hurt. And I remember just like bawling my eyes out. Like, who cries at church? Not me growing up. Like, I didn't understand church at all. This is just a very different church. And I was bawling my eyes out. And one woman put her hand on my shoulder and she said, I'm going to pray for you. And I remember thinking, why would you do that? That's so weird. Like, you don't know me. Why would you pray for me? And while I'm not overly religious, I would say I'm very spiritual. And I do think, there is, like, God is really important in my life. And I do think, it's been able, that whole experience has enabled me to understand like the true meaning of gratitude, and that, things can change in a heartbeat.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, obviously, everything that you are preaching now, you've experienced, and it's helped you personally. That entire method, like all the experiences you've gone through, and obviously, as you mentioned, you're now thankful for going through these experiences because it's allowed you to help others. Can you give an example of something recently, either from like yourself or a client you've worked with, about like kind of the SNAP method in action? Like, how
Oh
did
yeah.
you go about it, and like what was the result as a result of kind of going through this?
I have a client, I'll change her name. We'll call her Donna.
Sure.
Um, she's amazing. She had moved from Florida, escaping her abusive husband, moved her kids up here and everything. And she put on a lot of weight. He found them and had a drug overdose in front of her kids. Trauma, right?
Jeez, yeah.
That's a good one. And so she has completely rebuilt her life. She went and finished college. She has a professional career. She, bought her own car, all these things that she wasn't able to do when she first came up here. And she had a lot of support doing it too, but she ultimately, chose the right lane. And so we started working together, maybe a little less than 6 months ago. And she has lost, I think, about 67 pounds as of this week. She
Wow.
has, but even better than that, like that's really cool. And she wants to lose about 100 in total, and she will. I'm not even worried about that. But she has, she was on a CPAP machine, that's gone. She was type 2 diabetic, that's gone, as are the medications. So like all of those health issues that she had, and there were 4 or 5 other things, those are all gone, which is amazing. She sends me pictures all the time of all the purging that she does, right? Like all the bigger size clothes, which is really exciting. But the best part is every time a trigger comes up, she reaches out and she says, last night, I went to the fridge at, I don't know, midnight. So she was asleep. She woke up, she goes to the fridge and she eats whatever's in the fridge. She doesn't even discriminate. It could be chicken, it could be a chocolate cake, it doesn't matter. And she will binge on it. And so we work on it, and we, the first one, there was a story that was associated with that weight that she had just hit. I think she was about 197 pounds. And we figured out what the story was by using the SNAP method, because it was associated with her now deceased husband. So she couldn't really necessarily talk to him about it, but she could work it out on paper. And she set that to bed. The other times that she's done that behavior, because that's kind of her go-to, she would be stuck in that rut for months. And she was stuck in it, I think, for 2 or 3 days. The next one happened recently. Again, it was a certain weight. It brought her back to that story, this time with a family member, and it was the one night that she binged. And through the SNAP method, we worked through it, we got everything out, and she's back on track. She's just unstoppable. And I love clients like that just dig in and say, like, I trust you. I want what you have. I want, I want better for my kids, and I want better for now. And I'm not willing to suffer anymore. And it's really inspiring.
Wow. Wow. I mean, incredible. Obviously this woman, about, where she was and where she is now, and obviously how you've helped her now through the health side of it and the mindset changes that she's had. I mean, obviously now she's setting herself up for, more long-term weight loss and health versus that short-term health.
Oh yeah. And it's unbelievable. And people can see it, right? It's like her shoulders, her face. Um, she just beams differently, right? Like you can see it in every way that she carries herself, and it's just really inspiring. And I'm just so thankful to be able to walk with her while she goes through this.
Absolutely. So take us through like an example client who you work with. Like, let's say someone is coming to you, like, how do you go about working with this person? Like, what types of questions do you have them? Like, what types of things do you work on that person with?
So I try not to tackle the mindset piece up front, because I think it's like enough to just get your food in order first. And I should say, not everybody wants to lose 100 pounds. There are some people that just want to lose 10, but it's that nagging 10. Well, we still need to work on the emotional and the mental challenges. And so the first thing I do is we get their food in order. I teach them all about macros because I want them to understand the value of the food that they're putting in their body. I don't want them to be afraid of carbs or be afraid of fat. There's nothing to be afraid of when it comes to that. And teaching them, the difference between a good carb and a bad carb, when to fuel for your workouts, whatever it is that their goals are. Some of them have never set goals before in their entire life. So goal setting in general, not even about food, but one day I want to run a 5K, like, okay, let's put together a plan so you can get there. So it's sort of like chipping away at an iceberg. And so once the food feels like it's under wraps, then I kind of say, do you think about, physical fitness at all? Well, I don't like working out. Okay, you don't have to work out. I mean, you should. It's really good for you, but if it's not rooted in joy, don't do it, right? I don't want you to think, there's like two camps of people. There is I need to lose 15 pounds, so I'm going to go sign up for a gym and kill myself for 3 weeks and then like get burnt out and quit. And then there's the other one that's like, I need to lose 15 pounds and I'm going to eat nothing but fruits and vegetables and blow up like a tick and be really frustrated. So neither camp is correct, but I just throw out physical fitness, like, why don't you go out and go for a walk or take a swimming class or something like that. For me, I love to run. I love to be on my Peloton because those things make me happy. But if it's not rooted in joy, I don't recommend it, especially in the beginning. And then once that sort of feels a little bit more controlled, then they start to actually enter the mindset piece themselves. They'll start to share a little bit more about, a fight they had with a loved one or something that irritated them at work. And so we dig into it little by little, and then we work on it over the course of a number of weeks. I have this more intensive program where it's, live coaching, like calls every other week, monthly trainings where they basically walk away with all the contents of what I call the joy box, not the toolbox. But a joy box that they can take with them the rest of their lives. So they don't have to come back to me. They can just go back to living. Because to me, the highest compliment I can receive is you not coming back because you have mastered it and you have just moved on with your life. I actually don't like it when people come back and repeat with me. I'm probably the only person out there that says, please don't repeat with me. Because then I just feel like I've failed them.
So what are some of the lasting lessons that you want people to learn that will help set them up for that long-term health kind of mindset and weight loss?
I would say never be afraid to try something new. One of the things that keeps me grounded is meditation. Now, I will say publicly, because this is being recorded, I was so anti-meditation. I obviously have ADHD. If you haven't picked up on that in this call, then like we need to talk, right? I can't sit still and meditate, but it's been really good for me to just ground myself. Maybe I woke up cranky, or I had to wake up early to take the dogs out and it threw me off my fitness regimen or something. When I meditate, that brings everything back to like the foundation. I do it 10 minutes a day, every single day. It is like, if I allow myself to breathe, I need to allow myself to meditate. I also journal. In fact, I have a journal right here. I do it every day. Sometimes it's that long. It's like 3 or 4 lines. Sometimes it's an entire page. But when you get it out on paper, it's no longer stuck in your brain. It's no longer on this like repeat endless cycle, the hamster wheel of death, as I like to call it. And it's something that you can decide what you want to do with once it's out there on paper. So I'd love people, if for no other reason, just to, think about where to start with meditating and start with journaling. You can get so far, and then maybe start to notice the foods that you're feeding yourself. How is that affecting your energy? How is that affecting your mental health? And for the folks listening, I have a ebook I'd love to offer them when you want me to throw that out there.
Yeah.
But it's all about finding joy in the smallest of moments. Because I think when you start to notice things differently, like now when I take my dogs for walks, I'm like, oh, look at the little bunnies, aren't they cute? Where before I'd be like so aggravated that I even had to take them for a walk, that I never saw that cute little moment. I missed all of it. But I'm so present now that it's part of the best moments of my day.
Mm. Yeah, for sure. I mean, obviously sounds like that meditation is completely, just more awareness of yourself in the moment is something that's so important. I mean, I'll full transparency. That's something that I'm always working on improving as well, is just my presence in the moment. So that's obviously good to hear the impact that it's had on your life and your overall mindset. So what do you say is like the biggest mistake or misconception, maybe misconception people have about like long-term weight loss?
That is the goal, right? So sure, I hit the number, but was I completely happy at that point? No. I mean, I had just started all the 15 pounds before the end. I had just started all of the mental and emotional. But it was once I got through that part that I was super happy. But I always tell people, like, I think you need to understand that self-love needs to happen now. Like at whatever weight you're at, or whatever emotional situation you're in, you need to be able to master self-love now, because you never know what can happen. And I found in the beginning, it was really hard for me to understand what self-love really meant. And I had to teach myself that. If my coach had even spent 5 minutes with me once a week to tell me how to master self-love, what a different experience I would have had. And that is such a key component to this whole process that I think people miss. They get so obsessed with the number. In the beginning, I let them have that, because like this client I talked about before, she wanted to lose 100 pounds. I'll let her have that for a week or two. But telling somebody you want to lose 100 pounds is like saying you want to climb Mount Everest. Like that is just a huge amount of weight. And if I tell you that safely you'll lose 1 to 2 pounds a week, you're like, oh my God, I don't think I can do this, right? Like that sounds huge. But if I say, like, throughout the whole thing, we're going to learn and master self-love, and we're going to do all of these other things, they can start to see the wins along the way. And before you know it, those small, tiny changes add up to massive results really, really quickly.
Yes, yes. I love that so much. I mean, definitely wise words about, oftentimes we have the wrong focus. We're focused so much on, I want to lose 15 pounds as quickly as possible. I just need to get this weight off. But in reality, it's obviously more about the person who you're becoming in the process. So, this is all really, really good. And I want to finish with two questions for you. So the first question is, where can people find out more about you?
That's a great question because I have that answer. Let's go to Instagram at the Coleen Greco. I'm certainly on Threads and LinkedIn and Facebook too. But Instagram is probably the easiest and fastest way to get in touch with me.
Love it. Love it. And then we'll definitely link that below. And then the last question is, obviously you've had a lot of different experiences in life to this point. And let's say that, we're moving forward. It's the end of your life. You've achieved everything that you've wanted to achieve. You've impacted all the people that you've wanted to impact to this point. How do you want people to remember you?
Oh, you're gonna make me cry. Just that I was kind, that I had a kind heart, that I would always drop anything for anyone, and that I was really authentic and compassionate.
I love it. I love it. Remembering you as a kind person and someone who obviously cared about others, and really appreciate this, Coleen. A lot of times we sit here and talk about, macros and workouts and X's and O's, but as you talked about today, it's about so much more than that, about, really becoming who we need to become, through our mindset, through our habits, to become the permanent person who we want to become, that we're always working to improve. So thanks so much for your time. And I know a lot of people get a lot of value out of this.
Thank you. And can I encourage folks to check out the ebook?
Yes, go ahead. Where can they
Okay.
find that out?
So if they go to www.coleengreco.com, Coleen is Coleen, different spelling, Greco, Greco.com/ebooks. It's called Join the Smallest of Moments. And it just, for people that are just looking to get started, I think it's really helpful for them to just try a couple of things out and see how just those tiny changes can make a huge amount of difference in their mental and emotional well-being.
Absolutely. We'll definitely link that in the show notes as well. And appreciate your time today.
Thanks, Luke. This was great. I appreciate your time.